Lois.
Alright, can I have a seat, please?
Are we gonna be in the same one?
What do you mean, same one?
Same jail?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yay!
Alrighty.
Wait, they went through his phone?
No, they're going to go through his phone. He's gonna be... Oh my god. Hey, what are you doing here?
Lake Brantley High School began that January morning like any other school day in Altamonte Springs, Florida. Students walked in with bags, phones, and books. Nobody in the halls could see the danger that leaders were about to face. One message sent the night before had already moved from a student's phone to the people who could stop a possible attack. That message did not name a big crime scene. It did not come with a long story. It carried one clear warning that a student planned to kill someone at school the next day. The warning reached FortifyFL, Florida's school safety app. The tip said a student known as Jimmy, a name linked in reports to Isabelle Valdez, had talked about killing somebody from school. The date mattered because the warning came on January 22nd, and the danger was believed to be planned for January 23rd. By morning, the school was no longer handling a rumor. It was handling a possible attack inside the building, and every minute now mattered. The names that later came forward were Isabelle Valdez and Lois Lippert. Isabelle was 15. Lois was 14 at the time of the arrests. Both were students at Lake Brantley High School, and both were drawn into a case that sounded hard for many people to understand. The target was a male classmate. He was not a public figure. He was a student moving through his school days, and records say he did not know that he had become part of someone else's dark plan. Case papers described the plan as something that had grown over about 3 months. It was not described as one angry moment or one bad joke said in a hallway. The files pointed to messages, drawings, supplies, and steps that built toward a chosen day. Isabelle was described as the main person behind the plan, while Lois was described as the friend who helped with parts of it. The school day looked normal from the outside, while the evidence later showed a very different picture forming behind the scenes. The boy was chosen for a reason that made the case even stranger. Records say Isabelle believed he looked like the shooter from the Sandy Hook school attack in 2012. The files say she believed hurting this boy could create a bond with that shooter and somehow bring him back. That belief made the case far more serious. Before the planned day, Isabelle was described as watching the boy inside school. She followed him through hallways and took pictures of him without him knowing. Those pictures showed that the target was not picked by chance in the final minute. They suggested planning, watching, and learning his movements. The boy was going to classes, using hallways, and living an ordinary school life, while someone else was studying where he went and when he might be alone. The night before the planned attack, the digital trail became one of the most important parts of the story. Messages on Discord were later listed as evidence. In those messages, Isabelle wrote that it was going to be over by tomorrow. She also wrote about making a blood ritual for Adam Lanza. She asked Lois to bring latex gloves. Those lines made the warning more serious because the chosen day was already marked. The plan described in case files was not loose or unclear. It was built around the boy's bathroom. The idea was that the victim would be pushed inside, away from the open hallway, and attacked there. A towel was listed among the items connected to the plan. Other items had their own purpose in the story told by the evidence. The list did not look like random school items. It looked like a bag packed for a specific job, and that is why the backpack became one of the biggest pieces of evidence. Lois was not described as someone who only heard about the plan and stayed silent. The files say she helped prepare. She was linked to gloves, chocolate, flowers, cigarettes, and other items. She was also linked to drawings of the intended victim. Some drawings were called graphic by officials. Those papers were treated as signs that the idea had been in her mind too, not just in Isabelle's messages. There was also a knife. Reports say the knife was sharpened inside a school bathroom before the planned day. That detail mattered because it placed the preparation inside the school itself. The bathroom was not just a possible place for the attack. It was also described as a place where preparation happened. That made the school building part of the evidence trail before the attack could even begin. By January 23rd, the pieces had come together in a way that made the anonymous warning urgent. There was a named concern. There was a possible target. The only thing standing between the school day and the planned violence was the action that followed the tip. When the school opened on January 23rd, staff did not treat the warning as school gossip. They moved toward Isabelle and brought her into a conversation with the assistant principal. This was the moment when the hidden plan began to come into the open. The school did not wait for something to happen in the hallway. Staff acted before the target could be reached. During that conversation, Isabelle gave information that matched the fear in the tip. Reports say she admitted she had planned to hurt another student and described items in her backpack. That changed everything. The backpack was no longer just a student's bag. It became the thing everyone needed to see before the day could continue. The bag was taken to the principal's office. Inside it were items matching what had been described. A knife was there, gloves were there, trash bags and wipes were there. Other items connected to the plan were also listed. The school had found enough to move from concern to emergency action. Police were now part of the school day, and the planned attack had lost the cover of normal hallways and classroom noise. Police arrived at Lake Brantley High School and entered a scene that was serious, but still under control. There was no injured student. There was no crowded crime scene in the bathroom. The most important thing was that the danger had been stopped before the plan could reach the victim. The evidence was not lying around after violence. It was sitting in messages, drawings, statements, and the backpack that had been taken away in time. Officers began collecting what they needed to understand the plan. The knife was taken as evidence. The gloves, wipes, trash bags, towel, flowers, cigarettes, and other items were connected to the larger picture. Messages and images gave the digital side. The drawings added another part. The student tip showed how the case first reached adults. Each piece helped build the same timeline. A warning came in, the school acted, the bag was searched, and the plan was stopped. The planned scene inside the boys' bathroom also became part of the investigation. It was the place named in the plan, not the place where a killing happened. That difference mattered. The bathroom was checked because it was tied to preparation and the planned attack. The hallway route, the target's movements, and the school schedule all became details that helped explain how close the case may have come to becoming something worse. Once the evidence was collected and the statements were reviewed, Isabelle Valdez was taken into custody. The day that began with an anonymous warning had become a criminal investigation. The knife and the packed items were no longer just objects in a backpack. They were evidence tied to a planned attack on a classmate. Lois Lippert was also arrested after investigators connected her to the preparation. The case files pointed to her role with the knife, the drawings, the supplies, and the messages. She was not treated as a person standing far away from the plan. She was treated as part of the planning that led to that morning. After the arrests, the danger inside Lake Brantley High School was over, but the story did not slow down. Isabelle Valdez and Lois Lippert were placed in a patrol vehicle, and the camera inside that vehicle kept recording. That camera became important because it captured what happened when the adults were outside, and the two girls thought they were only talking to each other. The school had just avoided a possible attack, yet the conversation inside the car did not sound like shock, fear, or silence. It sounded loose, calm, and at times strangely casual. They talked about the tip that stopped them. They talked about the knife. They talked about how much time they might face. They even talked about mugshots and how they looked. Prosecutors later used that video because they believed it showed. The girls still did not understand the danger of what had almost happened. The defense saw the same video differently. They argued that two teens in a frightening moment may laugh or joke because they do not know how to handle the pressure. When the case moved into court, that patrol car video became one of the strongest parts of the argument over bond. Bond is the decision about whether someone can leave jail while the case continues. The defense wanted the girls released under strict rules. Families offered supervision. Lawyers asked the judge to see them as young people who could be watched closely at home. The prosecution pushed back hard. They said the case was too dangerous. They told the judge that no set of release rules would be enough to protect the community. The video helped them make that point. In the car, the girls did not only talk about being arrested, they also spoke about the planned attack, the knife, and the timing. One line stood out because Isabelle appeared to regret that the plan had not happened earlier in the morning. To prosecutors, that sounded less like panic and more like continued danger. The bond hearing in March became the first major courtroom moment after the arrests. The judge listened to both sides. The defense spoke about age, mental health, family control, and possible strict conditions. The prosecution focused on the evidence, the school setting, the planned target, and the recorded comments after arrest. The judge decided that Isabelle and Lois would remain in custody without bond. That decision did not decide guilt. It did not end the case. It only meant the judge believed the risk was too high to release them while the case was still moving forward. For the school community, it meant the girls would not return home while the charges were pending. For the girls, it meant their lives would now move through court dates, jail rules, lawyers, hearings, and evidence. Another major turn came when prosecutors moved the case from the juvenile system into adult court. That decision changed the weight of the case. In juvenile court, the focus is often more on treatment, control, and supervision until a young person reaches a certain age. Adult court can bring much longer control and much heavier punishment if a person is found guilty. Isabelle and Lois were charged as adults in connection with the alleged plan. The charges included attempted first-degree murder and possession of a weapon on school property. Prosecutors said they needed adult court because the accusations were extreme and because the community needed protection for longer than juvenile court might allow. The decision did not mean the girls had already been convicted. It meant the state wanted the adult system to handle what came next. Months after the arrest, Isabelle wrote a letter to the judge. The tone of that letter was different from the patrol car video. In the car, the talk sounded careless. In the letter, she said she was remorseful and asked for sympathy. She wrote that being away from people and the internet had changed how she saw her life. She blamed online influence for helping pull her into a darker place. She wrote that she had been exposed to the internet when she was young, and that the internet had helped make her a horrible person. She also wrote about an online true crime community that she said promoted violence. In her words, that space helped shape the way she thought. She said she and Lois got worse together. The letter did not erase the charges. It did not free her. It did not end the case. It became another piece of the story, showing the court a different version of Isabelle than the one heard laughing in the patrol car. A teen mental health expert who reviewed the letter publicly said it sounded less like a simple excuse and more like a picture of how Isabelle believed she reached that point. The expert spoke about isolation, rejection, online groups, and teens who may look fine on the outside while struggling inside. That view did not change the legal case, but it added another layer to how the public understood the letter. The letter also raised a larger warning for families. It showed how online spaces can become powerful when a young person feels alone or angry. It showed why adults often need to know not only who a child talks to at school, but also what groups, videos, messages, and ideas fill their private screen time. In this case, the court still had to judge actions and evidence, not just background and pain. While Isabelle was already in custody, investigators kept looking through evidence connected to the original investigation. Her phone became part of that work. A cybercrime team later brought new charges after saying they found illegal child sexual abuse material on the device. Those charges were separate from the school attack case, but they came from evidence found after the arrest. The new case added 10 counts of possessing child sexual abuse material. Because the material involved children, the details were handled carefully in public reporting. The point was that the phone investigation created a second criminal case, while the first one was still active. Isabelle appeared before a judge on those new charges too. The added charges made her legal situation much more serious, but they still had to move through court like any other charge. By this stage, the case had several moving parts. There was the attempted murder case involving Isabelle and Lois. There was the adult court decision. There was the bond ruling that kept both girls held. There was a patrol car video. There was Isabelle's letter. There was also the new phone case against Isabelle. The lawyers still had to review discovery, which means the evidence was shared between prosecutors and defense. That evidence could include reports, interviews, videos, drawings, phone data, and other records. One lawyer said they were still going through discovery and looking at possible ways to resolve the case. That did not mean a deal had been reached. It only meant the defense and prosecutors were still working through options before trial. There was no final sentence at this point because there had not been a completed trial or guilty plea reported. A sentence only comes after a person is found guilty, pleads guilty, or reaches another legal outcome accepted by the court. Until that happens, the case remains open, and the biggest question is still waiting in front of everyone. Will the court see this as a case of two dangerous teens who needed to be locked away, or as a case of two young girls who were pulled into a dark online world before anyone stopped them?